set it up in a way that, like, okay, you're saying something that's actually factually inaccurate,
right,
according to the narrative. Now, let's be real clear. I don't necessarily think they know what's going on yet. There's a lot of weird...
It's like, lady, didn't your husband just get his face blown off like 2 seconds ago? And not to be insensitive about it, but everyone's thinking it. No one wants to be the asshole. No one wants to say it. Everyone's thinking it. Everyone was thinking it when she gave the first speech. Everyone was definitely thinking it at the memorial. Nobody wants to say it because it's inappropriate. It's insensitive. I am the troll, right? So I'll be the one to say it. I think it's super inappropriate. I think it's inappropriate. I think it's weird. It's bizarre. Something is off there, and I don't like it.
What if grief itself became a mystery? In a nation still stunned by tragedy, one image refused to fade. A woman standing in silence, dressed in black, surrounded by cameras, yet showing no tears. That woman was Erika Kirk. Just days after the heartbreaking loss of her husband, activist and media figure Charlie Kirk, Erika did something no one expected. She stepped out of mourning and into power. Becoming the new CEO and chairwoman of Turning Point USA, she turned heartbreak into headlines and silence into strategy. But then, the internet erupted. Candace Owens said what others whispered, "Something doesn't feel right." And when Joe Rogan joined the conversation, asking questions the media wouldn't touch, the story exploded far beyond politics or grief. Because in this story, power, perception, and silence collide, and the truth may be hiding in plain sight. Before we uncover how it all unraveled, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss what comes next. Because what Joe Rogan and Candace Owens revealed would change everything the public thought they knew about Erika Kirk. It started with a sentence no one expected to hear. On her show, Candace Owens looked directly into the camera and said the words that shattered the public's uneasy silence. "If I were advising Erika, I'd tell her, don't do this. Don't step into power when the world still sees you in pain." Candace wasn't attacking, she was questioning. Because in the span of just a few days, Erika Kirk had gone from widow to CEO, from a grieving wife to the new face of one of America's most visible political movements. And for Candace, that transition felt unnatural, too fast, too calm. She argued that Turning Point USA should have appointed an interim leader, someone to hold the reins while Erika took time to heal. Instead, the cameras showed her sitting confidently in meetings, signing off memos, and preparing statements as if nothing had happened. Candace's point wasn't about sympathy, it was about perception. "When you lead an empire," she said, "every decision becomes public property. Every gesture tells a story. And when that story doesn't match the emotion people expect, questions begin to surface." Audiences across the internet felt conflicted. Was Candace brave for voicing what others were too polite to say, or cruel for questioning someone's way of grieving? In a single moment, she had cracked open the wall of silence surrounding Erika Kirk, and behind that wall, the internet found something it couldn't stop talking about. Because this wasn't just about loss anymore. It was about power, image, and the mystery of how quickly one woman seemed ready to rise. And as Candace's words echoed across millions of screens, a new question began to form. If this was only the beginning, what would the next revelation uncover? When the cameras turned to Erika Kirk, the world expected heartbreak. But what they saw was composure. No trembling voice, no visible tears, just a woman standing behind a podium, speaking with perfect control. To some, it was inspiring. A portrait of strength, faith, and discipline in the face of unimaginable loss. To others, it felt off, almost rehearsed. Because while mourners were breaking down in the crowd, Erika spoke like a leader addressing a boardroom, calm, poised, almost untouched by the chaos that had shattered her world. Candace Owens described it best. Everyone was thinking it. Nobody wanted to say it. Something doesn't feel right. That sentence spread like wildfire. Clips from the memorial flooded social media, slowed down, replayed, zoomed in on her face, analyzed like evidence in a case. Some claimed her stillness was the ultimate form of faith, that she was choosing grace over grief. Others saw it as emotional distance, the calm of someone who knew more than she let on. In one viral thread, a user wrote, "Her face looks like peace, not pain, and that's what scares me." The discussion split audiences in half: empathy versus suspicion, faith versus facade. And when Erika returned to host the Charlie Kirk show only days later, smiling gently, her voice steady, that division deepened. Was this healing or performance? Candace didn't answer that question. She didn't need to, because by then, the silence surrounding Erika's grief had already transformed into something louder, a wave of unease that no one could quite explain. And just when people thought the story had reached its emotional limit, a new twist appeared, this time involving money. It started quietly, an email, a few posts, a single line beneath a black and white photo of Charlie Kirk. In memory of Charlie, support his legacy. Donate $5, $15, $25. To the public, it looked like a fundraiser, but to many, it felt like a shift, a moment where grief became a marketing campaign. Just 24 hours after the memorial, the Turning Point USA website was updated, merchandise restocked, and the show resumed production. The same audience that had watched Erika hold back tears was now watching her launch a donation drive. And that contrast, sorrow one day, strategy the next, struck a nerve. Candace Owens voiced what millions whispered online: "Is this a tragedy or a rollout?" Screenshots spread like wildfire. Donation links, press releases, even branded hashtags. People compared the energy of the event to a sports spectacle, with pyrotechnics, cameras, and smiling staff. One viral comment read, "This looks more like a product launch than a farewell." Supporters argued that continuing the mission was what Charlie would have wanted, that Erika was keeping his dream alive, but critics couldn't ignore the timing, the polish, the speed. It was as if the organization had never paused to breathe, never allowed the silence to settle. And as those questions grew louder, Candace began to suggest that the issue ran deeper than image. Because if money could move this quickly, maybe information could too. Within days, a new element entered the story. One that would send the internet spiraling into speculation. A private group chat leak that hinted at conversations the public was never meant to see. It began with a whisper, a rumor that somewhere, inside a private group chat, there were messages that didn't match the public story. At first, few believed it, but then screenshots began to appear. According to Candace Owens, the screenshots were real, direct conversations between people close to Charlie and Erika Kirk. They weren't explosive at first glance, but the tone was different. Confusion, hesitation, even quiet disagreement about what really happened that night. Moments later, those images were everywhere, reposted, dissected, magnified like digital evidence in an open trial. Candace said she hadn't meant to leak them publicly. She shared them privately with a few trusted people for review. But once the screenshots escaped her circle, the story spiraled out of control. News channels picked them up, Twitter threads turned into investigations, and suddenly, the focus shifted. No longer was the question, was Candace too harsh? Now it was, what were they hiding? Every emoji, every timestamp, every unfinished sentence became a clue. Internet detectives zoomed in, color-coded the messages, even compared writing styles to figure out who said what. Some claimed the chats suggested internal pressure to stay quiet. Others said they proved nothing at all, just private grief being taken out of context. But the damage was done. Public trust cracked, and speculation filled the gap. For Candace, the leak wasn't an accident. It was validation. She believed the inconsistencies she sensed were real, and now the world could see fragments of them too. And just as the chaos reached its peak, a new voice entered the conversation, someone whose words could turn an online scandal into a global debate. Because when Joe Rogan speaks, the internet listens, and everything changes. When the storm was already raging online, one voice made it impossible to ignore. Joe Rogan, the man whose questions reach millions, brought the story onto his podcast, and with that, everything changed. He didn't accuse anyone. He didn't take sides. He simply asked, "Does any of this make sense to you?" Rogan described what countless viewers had been thinking: how strange the footage looked, how inconsistent the reports sounded, and how every new detail seemed to raise more questions than it answered. He replayed parts of the timeline, mentioning the rooftop video, the mysterious suspect, and the confusing chain of events. His tone was measured, curious, analytical, but unmistakably uneasy. And that's all it took. Within hours, short clips from the episode flooded TikTok, Instagram, and X. Users stitched reactions, added subtitles, slowed his voice for effect. One line, "The more you look at it, the less it feels real," became a viral sound. Rogan's reach turned what had been a niche political scandal into a mainstream obsession. Barbershops, college dorms, late-night talk shows, everyone suddenly had an opinion on Erika Kirk. Was she misunderstood or managing the message? Was this chaos or coordination? Supporters praised Rogan for opening the conversation. Critics said he'd fanned the flames. But either way, he'd done something no one else could. He turned speculation into momentum. And when the world's biggest podcaster starts doubting the official story, silence is no longer an option. Because Rogan's questions didn't end with emotion, they ended with evidence. And the next clue he pointed to would take this story from suspicion to shock. After Joe Rogan's podcast went viral, the internet turned into an investigation board. Screenshots, spreadsheets, timestamps, all being compared, frame by frame, message by message. And that's when someone noticed it. A tiny detail buried in the noise, the kind of thing you only see when you stop scrolling. According to Erika Kirk's public account, she received a phone call alerting her that Charlie was in danger. But when that moment was matched against the official timeline of the incident, the call appeared to have come before the time of the event itself. At first, people dismissed it as a simple mistake, an emotional slip, a time zone confusion, maybe even an error in reporting. But as the screenshots spread, explanations were replaced by questions. If it was just confusion, why hadn't anyone from the organization addressed it? Why was there no clarification, no correction, no statement? Reddit threads began mapping out parallel timelines, one with Erika's words, one with the official report. Each post felt like a courtroom argument, filled with red circles and arrows pointing to gaps that didn't line up. For a grieving widow, it might have been an honest blur of memory. But for skeptics, it became the missing piece, proof that something was being withheld. Influencers, analysts, even journalists picked up the story, their voices overlapping in a digital chorus of doubt. And the more silence came from Turning Point USA, the louder the speculation became. Supporters said grief clouds the mind. Critics said accuracy matters more than ever when the world is watching. Either way, the question refused to fade. How could the call have come before the tragedy itself? And just as the timeline mystery reached its peak, another piece of evidence dropped online. A shaky, grainy clip from a rooftop that promised to show the truth, but only made things even stranger. The moment the rooftop video appeared online, everything changed again. A short, blurry clip, less than 20 seconds long, supposedly showing the suspect, Tyler Robinson, on the roof just moments after the tragedy. It was meant to bring closure. Instead, it lit a new fire. Viewers watched it over and over, freezing every frame, slowing every movement. Something didn't add up. The man in the video moved too smoothly, too fast. But according to reports, Tyler had a noticeable limp from an old injury. How could he suddenly sprint across a rooftop like nothing was wrong? Candace Owens seized on that question. She compared footage side by side, the old videos of Tyler walking and the mysterious figure on the roof. Different posture, different stride. To her, it wasn't just about who was in the video, it was about how the story was being told. And then came the rumor. Some claimed a longer version of the video existed, one that briefly showed a woman standing near the suspect moments before he disappeared from view. Others swore they heard a faint female voice in the background before the clip abruptly cut. Within hours, hashtags like Ruan Mystery Woman and missing footage trended across platforms. But the clip vanished as fast as it appeared. Accounts that shared it were suddenly taken down or made private. To believers, that disappearance was confirmation. To skeptics, it was chaos feeding itself. One thing was clear. The footage didn't solve the mystery, it deepened it. Because now the question wasn't only who pulled the trigger, but who was standing beside him. And as the internet obsessed over the woman in the shadows, attention turned back to the one person at the center of it all. The woman who had never raised her voice, yet somehow controlled the entire narrative, Erika Kirk. When Erika Kirk finally spoke publicly about her husband, millions tuned in expecting tears. What they got instead was grace. Her voice was steady, her expression calm, the kind of composure that silences a room. She spoke about love, faith, and forgiveness. And in one line that would echo across social media, she said she forgave the man accused of taking her husband's life. For some, it was a divine act of strength, proof that her faith was unbreakable. But for others, it was almost too perfect, too serene, too soon. In that same speech, Erika mentioned Mikey McCoy, Turning Point USA's chief of staff, thanking him tenderly for his support. To her, it was gratitude. But to critics, it sounded strangely intimate, unsettling even. Within hours, that single word, Mikey, became a headline. Comment sections filled with speculation about the bond between them and why she had chosen to mention him at such a personal moment. Yet, while the public argued over tone and timing, something else was happening quietly behind the scenes. Erika was moving forward, swiftly and decisively. Her social accounts filled with professional statements and polished tributes. Press outlets began referring to her as the new face of Turning Point USA. And inside the organization, Mikey McCoy appeared to be handling communication, strategy, and access, becoming, in the public eye, her right-hand man. Supporters said it was a natural transition, a wife continuing her husband's mission. Skeptics saw something else, a power structure forming with remarkable precision, as if the next chapter had already been written. From grief to leadership, from silence to control. Erika Kirk had turned tragedy into transformation. And whether you call it resilience or calculation, one thing was certain: she was no longer just Charlie's widow. She was the woman running the empire he left behind, and the mystery surrounding her had only just begun. Because when power changes hands in silence, the questions never truly stop. In the end, silence became Erika Kirk's most powerful weapon. While the world argued, speculated, and demanded answers, she said almost nothing. No clarifications, no confrontations, just quiet appearances, measured words, and that same unshakable calm. Candace Owens had broken the silence. Joe Rogan had amplified it. And yet, even as the storm grew louder, Erika remained the eye within it, motionless, untouchable, and perfectly composed. Some call it grace, others call it control. But whichever side you believe, one thing is undeniable. Erika Kirk changed the narrative. She turned tragedy into strength, grief into order, and silence into power. And that power now defines her, not just as Charlie's widow, but as the woman reshaping the empire he built. The question is no longer what happened, but why the silence worked so well. Because in the world of influence and image, words can be denied, but silence can never be disproven. So what do you think? Was Erika protecting a legacy, or protecting something deeper? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because in the next story, we'll uncover how influence, faith, and power can rewrite history itself, only here on Inside the Billionaires.